James Ernest of the Grueling Truth Radio Network, here with NFL legend Bryant McFadden. Brian, how'd you get started in football?
How did I get started? I guess as a child, growing up, watching the game is all I did, and seeing the entertainment side and how physical the game was made me want to be a part of it, and always just loved watching football. So that pretty much started the attraction for me and the love for the game.
Excellent. Did you have any family members or that played when you were growing up?
Yeah, I had a few family members that were older than me that played. It was pretty much, that was the number one sport in my family, football, and I just kind of grew up and just followed suit.
So what was it like growing up in Hollywood? Now, of course, when the listeners hear me say Hollywood, they're thinking of something completely different than, you know what I mean.
Yeah, the real Hollywood, Florida.
Exactly.
Yeah, but growing up in Hollywood was cool. South Florida is a football hotbed as far as, having the ability to grow up and play football year round. And for me, it was just the talent and the competition was so intriguing. And even as a child, you was trying to find ways to get better so you could stick out. And that was part of my, thought process, not just wanted to be a part of something, but I always wanted to stick out because I wanted to have an opportunity to play football professionally. And I knew as a young child, taking it serious, extremely young, I would be able to use that as a benefit and also become a habit.
Being in Florida, like you mentioned, a hotbed of football, you probably had a lot of different options when it came to college recruiting. What caused Florida State, the Seminoles, to stick out more so than the other teams?
It was in-state. In-state, but it wasn't close to home. It was probably about a 6-hour drive. But, at that time when I was getting recruited from Florida State, they were one of the best teams in the country. So ultimately it came down to Florida State and Miami. And Butch Davis was the head coach at Miami, and I felt like eventually he would leave the Hurricanes to pursue a job in the National Football League. And I just felt like Bobby had opportunities to leave Florida State. He declined, and he assured me that he would remain there if I was to sign with Florida State my entire career, and I believed him. Butch Davis told me the same thing, but I just felt like Butch wanted that opportunity to get to the NFL, and come to find out, after my freshman year, Butch Davis took that job in Cleveland. So, that made my decision a lot easier than what many expected just from the stability standpoint at the head coaching position.
Yeah, that's one thing fans don't give players enough credit for, because then they go, they go there because of this, that, or whatever reason. But the fact that the coaching staff really does, you pick them because you feel that they're going to make you a better player. So do you feel that Coach Bowden and his staff were able to transfer you?
Yeah. When you look at what they were able to do as far as consistency, that stuck out the most for me at that time. When you look at their ability to get the most out of their players on the collegiate field and have them, they get a shot to at least get drafted. That also was a major factor for me. So I felt like when you look at those coaches, the coaches that coach outstanding players that I watched growing up were still there and would be hands-on with me, I felt like that was a go-to. Because ultimately my goal was to get to the NFL, and I wanted to do whatever it took for me to get there, in which I could control, but also make sure that I'm getting developed the right way to have that shot.
With being drafted early on, but not in the first round, does, after the first round ends, do you start to have worries or concerns on where you're going to go?
Yeah. Outside of the guys that probably go 1 and 2, any player that has been drafted in the National Football League probably would say they thought it would go higher, right? And I felt like, I would be anywhere to a late first round pick. That didn't happen, and of course I got concerned, and then ultimately I fell into a good spot. But at that time, I was pissed off. I was pissed off because I felt like, based on everything that I did leading up to the draft, not to mention my film, But
Exactly.
you live, you learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, outside of the guys that go top 1, top 2, top 3, everybody felt like they should have got drafted higher than where they went.
So do you feel like that maybe gave you some extra motivation, some extra intensity in your game, or was that just something that you were always going to have in you?
Yeah, I was going to have that regardless, but no question that added to the fire. You know, I wanted to make sure that I proved the Steelers right in drafting me, but also prove the other teams wrong for passing on me. And I think it worked out, good for both parties. You know, with me and myself as individuals, and also with Pittsburgh.
Was it 2 of your first 4 or 2 of your first 5 years you ended up winning the Super Bowl with Pittsburgh?
Yeah, I was batting. I was shooting 50% from the floor. First 4 years we won 2.
Excellent. So obviously things were going great there in Pittsburgh. What inspired the change to go to the team that lost the Super Bowl to you all, the Cardinals?
Well, it's more of a business decision. Financially that played a big part in me deciding to leave. And ultimately, that was a short stay. Of course, I got traded back. Pittsburgh wanted me back, and the feeling was mutual. You know, I felt like I should never left because the comfort and the familiarity was there with the organization and how they do things. So, ultimately when that happened, I didn't want to leave, but everybody, sometimes you make business decisions and sometimes you're happy with them. And not saying that I wasn't happy with them, but it was a learning experience. But I went back to where I was supposed to be at.
With Pittsburgh, what coaches really influenced you and shaped your game in the pros?
Dick LeBeau, mastermind, one of the more instinctive defensive-minded guys in all of the NFL, in my opinion. His ability to make you understand things before they happen, his ability to explain to you why you're doing what you're doing, and also the respect, the credibility that he has. If you're playing for Coach LeBeau, you don't need to be motivated. You're motivated just from the standpoint of being in his presence. And clearly that meant a lot to us and why we were so dominant defensively for the most part while he was there. He's a guy that we all respected, and anytime he spoke, we listened, and we gave him the utmost respect.
Yeah, that's one of those things I'll never understand, is how a lot of times, the coaches that were better athletes, don't do so well. But not many people, or not enough people, give him credit for, how great he was as a player and then how great he was as a coach.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at his playing career, over 60 interceptions, when you look at Coach LeBeau being the head of some of the more dominating defenses, you look at guys that he's had on his staff as far as coaches go off elsewhere, when you look at his ability to change defensive philosophies, creating the fire zone, something that high schools run, colleges, and of course other NFL teams run. His ability to embark and have his hand forever imprinted in the National Football League is something that kind of goes unnoticed, in my opinion.
So towards the end of your career, you started doing your own shows, the BMAC Corner, and other programs. What was that like while you were playing? Were there any restrictions put on you by Pittsburgh?
No, that was fun. My second year, I wasn't even a starter. I was like a nickelback, but I had my own television show, my own radio show in Pittsburgh. So, that was huge. And just being able to talk about sports and have my teammates come on and support me, and I get a chance to interview them, was huge for me and also huge for the city. But it tells you how much they love Steeler football in Pittsburgh. For me not to be a superstar on the team at that time, to be able to have that availability and also get support from fans was outstanding. Something that I did not expect. And I was definitely appreciative of that moment. And it also kind of gave me a gateway into seeing what I would like to get in eventually when my career was over, which is talking sports, preferably football.
Exactly. I mean, and you've definitely transitioned amazingly into that with 120 Sports, an all-digital sports network. Where do people find out more about them? Are they web-based? Are they network-based? What's 120 Sports?
Yeah, it's a little bit off. Actually, we went through a name change a few months ago. Now it's called Watch Stadium, but it's pretty much web-based and also television-based. So you get a chance to hear my insight about anything football related from the college standpoint and the professional standpoint, and something that I enjoy dearly.
Yeah, you can definitely tell you're passionate about sports. I mean, with being on co-hosting on the ESPN and Sirius, and just, I mean, how much dedication. Do you feel that there's as much work can go into the broadcasting side as the playing side at times?
Oh, no question. I think most importantly for me, the first thing that I needed to understand was that whoever is watching me and listening to me, they've never been in a huddle. So I can't speak to them like I'm talking to a fellow teammate or fellow opposing player. So my job is to simplify and make sure that whoever's watching me and listening to me, they learn something based on what I'm saying and how I say it. So, to use an example, I feel like whoever's watching me, I look at them as my aunt, or my grandma, individuals that might not watch football religiously or casually, but I have to be able to get my info explained to them in a way that they understand. So if I can get my good aunt to understand football, to understand fire zone concept, to understand why a coach decided to call this play, or why the defender decided to do X, Y, Z, if I can get her to understand what I'm saying, I did my job.
Very true. I mean, you got to take it down to the base level a lot of times, because there'll be some fans out there that, feel that they know the game so well, and they're like, well, why are they talking, down to us? Well, it's not that they're trying to talk down to you. You're just trying to explain it so everyone can understand, and the whole room kind of expand football as opposed to just limit it to, select people, it sounds like.
Exactly. And also, too, you want to entertain. You want to be likable when people are listening to you or watching you. So, entertain, also inform.
So, would I be correct in saying who we feel your odds-on favorite for the Super Bowl is?
Yeah, you know that. Everybody knows that. My odds-on favorite it should be your favorite too, if you know anything about football. But I'm just joking with that statement. But no question, I'm riding with Pittsburgh. Hopefully, they can go ahead and get the 7th championship in organization history. That would be huge. Well, it's going to be a difficult task starting off this week. I got to get some revenge going on against Jacksonville.
Exactly. I mean, you're right. They definitely are one of the big favorites. They got a lot going for them, and it is hard to argue against them. It's just, with the if Minnesota, which would be the really amazing story, you have to admit, if they could win it in their home stadium, that would be pretty cool as well.
Exactly.
I mean, just the intensity of the fans, which the irony, though, is how Super Bowl tickets sell. There probably wouldn't be many Minnesota fans in the Minnesota stadium.
Exactly, yeah. So, a lot will play out this weekend, but, that's the exciting part about playoff football.
Of the coaching signings this offseason, who do you feel has made the best signing so far?
Best signing, coaching-wise. A lot probably could still happen, but I think with the Raiders finding a way to get John Gruden out of the box, out of the booth, was impressive, not to mention the expectations that he provides with that signing. I think that's a good move based on what they're trying to do, get the most out of their young quarterback and Derek Carr. Talking about a guy that's extremely passionate about the game. Gruden has that passion. Also, a knowledgeable guy. So I think, that was the biggest headline signing so far in the NFL.
Is Ben ever going to slow down, or is he just keeps getting better and better? Roethlisberger, I mean.
Well, when you look at what's surrounding him, not surprised to see him play at the level he's currently playing at. When you look at the experience that he has, when you compare that with superstars around him, surprised? No, I'm not surprised. So will he slow down? It all depends on if the personnel changes. If Big Ben didn't have the likes of Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, when you pair that up with the offensive line, with multiple Pro Bowlers on the offensive line, yeah, you could see a dip in production. But based on what they have there, they've done a phenomenal job making sure the personnel is up to par, and that has enabled Big Ben to put up quality numbers and keep them in the conversation, in the Super Bowl conversation. So, will he slow down? As of now, what I know based on what the personnel looks like and going forward in the future, I don't think so. They keep those guys intact. Le'Veon Bell's going to be up again. You can keep him in the Steeler uniform. Of course, Antonio Brown's not going anywhere. You still got Juju, who's a freaking rookie. You got McDonald, they just acquired from the 49ers in the beginning of the season. They got some nice young weapons there intact that will be for quite some time. So I don't think he slows down anytime soon.
Is that the true secret of Pittsburgh's greatness? Is it's people behind the scenes that get the right players in place and get the right attitude, the right organizational structure?
Yeah, Kevin Colbert has done a phenomenal job making sure the roster is competitive. When you look at recent history, especially at the wide receiver position, I don't think there's another organization that draft wide receivers better than the Pittsburgh Steelers. You get Antonio Brown, as a sixth rounder, if I'm not mistaken. When you get a Emmanuel Sanders as a third rounder, you get a Hines Ward as a third rounder, you get a Mike Wallace as a third rounder. You get a Martavius Bryant, I think he was a third rounder. You get a Juju, late in the second round. When you talk about cashing in on big-time playmakers at that position is huge. And you look at the moves they made this season, signing Joe Hayden when he was available. He's been a big addition to that team. We look at the draft picks as far as, T.J. Watt, when we look at Tuitt, Dupree, outstanding players they've been able to hit on. And this is the standard that has always been the standard. Even though he's not participating, anymore this season, Ryan Shazier, he played phenomenal. Was on pace to have an all-pro year this season before the injury. So that means a lot. And when you're able to bring in quality personnel that understand the standard, no surprise to see them stay in that conversation as one of the best teams, not just in the AFC, but in the NFL.
Could you tell us a little bit about Fancom?
Well, Fancom is a unique platform. Consists of myself, along with other former players. We have the ability to have open dialogue with fans, not just talking about our respectable teams, but the entire NFL, the body of the NFL. And, anytime you have certain questions, we're there to inform you, answer questions. Also, there's nothing wrong with having quality, generic football conversation. And there's no trolling, there's no disrespect going on, everything is respectable. And we give it the platform, there's no such thing as a stupid question. Our job is to inform. Because we feel that as former players, it's our job to make sure when you watch the game, you're learning something. And sometimes people may not have that ability when they're sitting at home and they're not around individuals that have actually been a part of a team or in a locker room. So for us, all the former players that are involved in Fancom, we love the sport, but we also love to talk about the sport of football, the game of football. And that's what we do.
Obviously, you're in the media now. You're covering the games. You're doing the Fancom. Any other projects that you have going on?
Well, not right now. I'm just taking one day at a time. But of course, you can catch me on WatchStadium.com. Of course, with Fancom. I'm a good follow on Twitter as far as sports related content. And anything football related, I'm all in for. So. This is my passion, and I love, even though I'm removed from the game, I still feel like I'm a part of it based on my relationships with certain endeavors that I'm currently in.
Excellent. Well, we greatly appreciate you coming on the show and spending some time with us and telling us about Fancom. That way we can send more fans out that way to interact with legends such as yourself, and so they can learn the game the right way.
Okay, well, thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir.